What's going on, everybody? It's your host, Dominic Peterson, host of the Doug Zone 503 podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. Whether it's your first time viewing or long time viewing, welcome into the podcast. Kindly ask that you go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Go ahead and share the video as well if you want to. But most importantly, guys, word of mouth, telling your friends, family, cousin, brother, dog, cat, parrot, whatever you got. Tell them about the Doug Zone 503 podcast right here on YouTube. All right, guys. So on today's episode, we got to talk about the coaching move that just happened. Oregon offensive line coach Adrian Klemm is headed to the New England Patriots. Klemm will take a pay raise and return to the NFL, as Klemm was the Steelers' assistant offensive line coach from 2019 to 2020, and then was promoted to a full-time offensive line coach in 2021 before joining the Ducks. And man, oh man, let me tell you guys, in my opinion, this is a pretty big loss for the Ducks, okay? I don't usually say that about certain assistants, but Klemm is a special guy, okay? And that just tells you something when a Hall of Fame coach from the NFL, winning coach like Bill Belichick wants you, right? So the Ducks, it looked like they were going to retain him. It looked like, Dan Lanning said last week that they were going to retain him. And this is big. This is big. Oregon allowed the fewest sacks, only 5 sacks in college football last year. Only 5 sacks, guys, all year. And I think they only allowed 1 sack for I think it was through 8 games. And they played teams like Georgia up front, BYU, scrappy teams up front. And they were excellent up front. You could tell the way these guys were being coached. Discipline, not many mistakes. I mean, it was nice. Now, although that given, Klemm did inherit one of the most experienced offensive lines in college football this last year. Okay. It doesn't help losing Klemm at this time when you need him most, right? You lose 4 starters off of that last year's team. And, it's just really tough. Now, I did say this about Klemm on Twitter. I did have to, I always like to say my final goodbyes to coaches when they come through. As a podcaster, I do talk to these guys every so often. I wouldn't say every day, but every so often about recruiting and stuff like that. So this is what I said about Klemm. I said, all I can say that it's a class act by Adrian Klemm to wait till after the signing period and to announce his move to the Patriots. Not sure if it was done that way on purpose, but either way, timing worked out pretty good. Klemm was phenomenal at Oregon. Best of luck, coach. No doubt, best of luck, coach. I mean, just phenomenal what he did here at Oregon in a short time. I mean, the offensive line was elite. Everything you would want from an O-line. I'm sure Bo Nix would say the same thing. Well, he had career numbers here at Oregon as a quarterback. A lot has got to do up front on that offensive line. We'll see how they do this next year. They're going to have to look for a new offensive line coach and see what guys stick around. But, man, class act, though. You can't say it's big enough for him to wait till after the signing period to announce this move and really keep this under wraps. Because if you announce this during a key time during the signing period, key time during the transfer portal when it's open and guys are going, you're not likely to probably land those guys like Junior Angelau and Johnny Cornelius, top offensive linemen in the transfer portal. Guys that are likely going to be key roles on your offensive line this year if you did not land them. So keeping Klemm around just right till then is a class act. Some coaches might have dipped right away, right when they had the opportunity, so that other team doesn't fill that spot. Well, Klemm sticks around. He says, "I'm good if I stay here, and if I can still get that role with New England later on till after the signing period, then I'll take it." And I think that's just what just went down. And of course, Dan Lanning's not going to leak anything to the media. Of course not, right? Everyone knows that Klemm was just a phenomenal coach, on the field, getting those guys to only allow 5 sacks, but the recruiting, like I said, the recruiting is another thing that's going to be a big loss here for Oregon. He really impressed me on the recruiting side of the field. I always knew he could coach, coming from the NFL, usually guys can coach on the field. But recruiting, that's a big part of college football, bringing the talent onto campus and securing it. and bringing these kids here. And that's what really impressed me. He was able to bring some top targets here on the offensive line position. We could start with Josh Connolly, right? Last year's recruiting cycle, 5-star offensive lineman, able to land him late. I just said to Johnny Cornelius, Junior Angela. I mean, these are guys that are top offensive linemen in the portal, able to bring him here to Oregon. And these are guys that are going to have big roles on the offensive line this year. And not only that, he played key roles on many other recruitments. I mean, it wasn't just offensive line guys. So, man, losing Klemm, he's a great coach. I know Dan Lanning will go out his way to find a guy that is just as impressive, no doubt. That's all he's done while here at Oregon. And I got a lot of fans asking and kind of freaking out. Is Oregon a stepping stone program? I mean, we're seeing all these coaches every year leave and come. It's hard to keep track, and fans are freaking out. All hell is breaking loose for these guys because of today's coaching carousel in college football. For example, I'll pull this up here. I got @BlazersJJ here on Twitter saying, sure, but you cannot compete this way. Nearly 1/3 of key positions turned over this year after only a single year of the Lanning era. We need to start admitting this is a problem. This isn't happening to Oregon State, Washington, or Utah, only at Oregon. Well, let me tell you, @BlazersJJ, I get where you're coming from, okay? And it depends on everybody's age. Because if you were an Oregon fan 20, 30 years ago, you've seen a lot of Oregon hiring within. You've seen his 20-year-long assistants like Gary Campbell, legendary running backs coach here at Oregon. But really just don't see that in college football anymore. I mean, that's just not the age of college football all around. Another thing you said that's not really happening at Utah, Oregon State. I get it. Those are two schools, though, that have head coaches that have been there, okay, for more than 4 years, especially in Utah's case. Whittingham has been there for decades. So it's a little easier to keep certain guys around for a while when you have your system cemented into that program, okay? And as far as Washington, though, when you throw Washington in there, that's just a lie, okay? Their whole coaching staff just went on a whole overhaul on an awful season they just had 2 years ago, okay, in 2021. So I know their offensive coordinator just stayed, that he didn't go to Bama. Good for them. I don't expect that to last forever, okay? That guy, if he wants to get a promotion, that's where he goes. He's a damn good offensive coordinator. #1 passing offense last year. No duh, Alabama was calling the phone. This is just not uncommon for teams that perform well, especially at big-time brand schools like Oregon. Not even for schools like Alabama. Let's look at Alabama, right? I mean, they just had two new coordinator hires. Big-time hires. And I can't tell you how many times after every year, even after winning national championships, Saban has have to hire new coordinators. And you want to know why? It's because it's a good thing when you have coaches leaving for promotions or head coaching jobs. Whatever it may be. And that's the thing. You have Kenny Dillingham to Arizona State. Klemm's going to the NFL for a big pay raise. Going to go under a Hall of Fame coach. I mean, it's just that's a good thing in my mind. Now, if it was the guys are really just leaving and we don't know why, and Lanning and the rest of all these teams or coaches are staying, no, it's not the case. Now, maybe other teams like around like Utah, they kind of retain their coaching staffs because Whittingham has been there for years. This is Lanning's first year. Of course, it's like recruiting. You got to find your guys for your system. It's the same thing with coaching. Not every guy works out in your coaching staff. And in this case, you just had 10 wins in your very first season. A lot of these guys want to be promoted. They came in with that mindset, believe it or not. I know you don't want to hear that as Duck fans. I know they're not going to tell you that straight to your face while taking the job. Of course, they're not going to say in their interview, oh, yeah, I'm just taking this job so I can go be a head coach in 2 years. In the back of their mind, it's probably what they have, and that's what they want. But they got to play the role. They got to succeed here, and then they know that's most likely the role that they're going to get. Now, that's not to say some guys will establish a life here, grow, have kids here, and want to be here. And I'm not saying now every coach is going to lie to your face, but most of what college football is right now, especially in the assistant coordinator roles, that's just what it is. They want to be promoted. Okay. And last week, Lanning says, okay, and this is another thing that's on my mind is just how transparent Lanning is with the media with these hires. Lanning literally says, not currently anticipating any changes when asked about the coaching staff and Klemm. Because there's rumors going around, right? All last week about Klemm going to the Patriots. Well, come to find out, you know, he bounces, and Clem goes after. Now I think that has to do with everything with the signing period, everything to do with recruiting, like I just announced, like I just said earlier in the podcast. But still, I mean, there was another time in the media where Lanning was asked about the safeties coach position, and he tells the media, I don't know when there's going to be a hire at all. I don't know, and in less than 12 hours, Oregon hires former Tulane defensive coordinator Chris Hampton. And guys, I also made a video on Chris Hampton, the defense coordinator, talking about him on my channel. If you guys want to go search that up, that was a few weeks ago when he was hired. One of the only channels I actually covered Chris Hampton on that hire, just because so much was going on. But so this is now 2 examples in this offseason where I'm pretty sure Dan Lanning knows the correct answer on these questions he's getting from the media, and he just simply outright refuses to let the media know anything. And it's not bad, especially as a fan, to not let the media know anything, because then other teams don't know intel on what's going on with your team. So, and on top of that, he has every single right. This is his program with a U, and he can run it however he wants. He doesn't have to tell the media really anything. Now, he can give the media right, to ask him questions, but he doesn't have to answer them exactly truthfully if he doesn't want to, especially if it has to do with personal business dealings, right? Now, a lot of you might be asking, now that Adrian Klemm's gone, who's Oregon going to go grab out there? Who can Oregon go get to replace such a great coach like Adrian Klemm? Well, now I got to tell you, it's going to be difficult for Lanning. Okay, it's going to be very difficult because there is not a whole bunch of quality names out there. Coaching carousel of really good names is kind of over, which it's a good thing on one end that Adrian Klemm waits till the recruiting, signing period's over, transfer portal closes, because you get your players in here and you get that wrapped up. But when he's gone, who's going to be that next guy? Now, there are sources out there that's told that on reports out there. Shout out to all those great journalists out there doing the due diligence, getting that information out there and spreading it to people like me that let me know. Lanning was told this about 4 or 5 days away before this happened. So he had some time to know when Adrian Klemm was taking this job, and he has some time to really get the ball rolling and get interviews going. So who are some of those potential offensive line coaching candidates? Let's go ahead and start with this one. We got Matt Maddox from Purdue. So when looking for potential candidates, it's all about connecting the dots, right? Okay, that's really what you want to do. Who has past relationships with who, right? Well, when Oregon hired new offensive coordinator Will Stein, who will have a big say on this offensive line coach hire, no doubt, Maddox worked with Stein at UTSA, but recently took a position with Purdue, which I'm not sure how that exactly will work on getting Maddox to Oregon if Oregon wanted Maddox, since he kind of just accepted a position at a new school. But I'm sure it can be done if Maddox really wanted to come to Oregon, if Oregon really wanted him. Maddox was evaluated to evaluated to UTSA's co-offensive coordinator position in 2022 after serving as the Roadrunners' run game coordinator and offensive line coach for 2 seasons. His offense averaged 476 yards per game, ranking 12th nationally, ranking up the 3rd most first downs in the country, and setting a school record with 362 first downs. UTSA scored a Conference USA best 36.8 points per game, which was 14th nationally, including 48 to lead the Roadrunners past North Texas in the conference championship game. With Maddox's offense leading the way, UTSA finished the 2022 campaign with an 11-3 record and a perfect mark 8-0 in league play. So no doubt Matt Maddox was doing big things with Will Stein at UTSA. Will Stein will have a big say in this hire. This would make perfect sense for me These guys have history together. They connect. They did big things at UTSA on the offensive end. This would be a great hire for Oregon. Let's go on to the next candidate here in mind is Jim. Now, I might be butchering his name. Jim Michelizik. Michelizik. Don't know if I'm saying that right at all, but Jim, we'll just call him Jim M from Oregon State. Jim M has, personally, and this would be a home run hire, no doubt, if Lanning was to make this hire right here. There's nothing better than poaching really good coaches from your rival school, like your little brother, Oregon State, right? Jim M from Oregon State has produced really, really good offensive lines here at Oregon State. Like I always say when I look at coaches, I always like to say to see what they did with what they had, right? And Oregon State doesn't necessarily land 5-star offensive linemen all the time. And you've seen how good they were as an offensive line this last year. You've seen what they did to that Oregon defensive line when they played them in the Civil War. I mean, 14 straight runs and they just score. It was absolutely insane what that O-line was doing to Oregon. And of course, I did not see that coming at all. And when you got a coach like that can develop talent like that and compete against 5-star talent that Oregon had on that D-line, I mean, man, that would be a great hire. You give him the branding, the large platform that Oregon has, and he will absolutely do some amazing things at Oregon, no doubt, if you're bringing him here. Some notable achievements for Jim. He was hired on at Oregon State back in 2018. He had the Joe Moore Award for O-line, one of 4 finalists for the nation's top unit in 2021. He has 8 offensive linemen who have earned all Pac-12 honors since 2018. So really good developmental coach there. Scott Huff is another one from Washington. Again, it's always great to poach coaches from rival schools. Another candidate here in Scott Huff from Washington. I never like to hype up the opponent, but Huff has done some pretty good work out there in Washington. In 2021, Huff added another first-team All Pac-12 selection to his resume as left tackle Jackson Kirkland earned that honor for second season in a row. Since Huff's arrival, the Huskies have had at least one first-team All Pac-12 offensive lineman each season and 2 first-teamers on 3 of those occasions. So 3 really good candidates in mind right there. Want to shout out Scoop Duck and Justin Hopkins out there for a really great article for those candidates and good information that he provided there that I'm sharing with you guys. Go shout out Scoop Duck there. I've done some really good work with them as well. I have articles out with Scoop Duck covering recruiting. And just shout out all the journalists, man, that really do good work for Oregon football so I can get the information out. Rob Mosley's another good one, man. And I'm not trying to be a journalist. I'm simply just trying to get you guys information out there and let you guys know who Oregon can hire for this offensive lineman position coach, because they got a lot of work to do. I mean, they got a lot of searching to do, and it's not going to be easy. Never the doubt, there's some candidates for you guys. A couple achievements with those candidates. Get the ball rolling, and maybe we'll see if Oregon hires any of those guys. Maybe Oregon doesn't hire any of those guys. I missed on all. Doesn't matter to me. Matters to Oregon, right? Never the doubt. Go Ducks, people. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button if you like content just like this. Whether you're first-time viewer or long-time viewer, kindly ask that you go ahead and tell your friends and family about the podcast right here on YouTube. I'm your host, Dominic Peterson. I'll see you in the next podcast, guys. Go Ducks.